In the year 1874, Dr. Seaborn Freeman Salter published a treatise titled Nervous Vitality, a work that dared to unveil a reality so stark and uncomfortable that modern science, in its pursuit of profit and convenient narratives, has largely chosen to silence it. While the contemporary world constructs a reality that normalizes unbridled lust and celebrates fleeting hedonistic pleasures as liberation, Dr. Salter's extensive medical observations expose a far grimmer truth. He posits that these societal norms are merely a veneer hiding a silent epidemic, one that extinguishes lives, suffocates dreams, and cripples innovation at its source. This is not a matter of moralistic finger-wagging. It is a cold, hard medical observation regarding the devastating impact of masturbation and the misuse of generative energy. It is a call to confront the hidden realities that lie beneath the surface of our civilized existence. Dr. Salter defines masturbation, or self-pollution, as the artificial indulgence of sexual desire through the mechanical manipulation of the reproductive organs. He traces this pathology back to its earliest documented instance in the biblical account of Onan, Genesis 38, 9-10, effectively branding the act as onanism. The transgression of Onan, which resulted in immediate divine retribution, serves as a historical archetype for the misuse of vital energy. However, Salter argues that in the modern era, this curse does not manifest as a lightning bolt from the heavens, but rather as a systematic, creeping decay of the physical and mental constitution. It is a slow poison. This vice, hidden under various euphemisms and protected by a false sense of modesty, plagues thousands of individuals, both male and female, rotting the very core of society from the inside out. The fundamental premise of Salter's work is that the seminal fluid is not merely a biological secretion, it is the distilled essence of the blood, the oil that fuels the lamp of life. When this oil is spilled recklessly through the artificial friction of masturbation, the body is forced to tax its other systems, the brain, the nerves, the digestion, to replenish the loss. But the replenishment is never equal to the original store. The result is a gradual dimming of the life force. The tragedy, as Salter notes, is that this epidemic is veiled by modesty. Parents refuse to speak of it to children. Doctors refuse to speak of it to patients for fear of offense. Thus, the silence continues, and the shadow grows longer, claiming more victims who wander through life feeling drained, invisible, and disconnected from their true power. To acknowledge this is to begin the painful process of stripping away the comfortable lies we have been fed about sexual freedom, when that freedom is merely a slavery to impulse.
To understand the depth of the damage caused by self-abuse, one must first understand the divine blueprint of human sexuality, as explained by Dr. Salter. He illustrates that natural intercourse creates a specific magnetic and electrical discharge. When a man and a woman unite in a committed natural act, there is an exchange of polarities. Upon the release of semen in this context, the passions are quieted naturally, and the male organ loses its charge, in a way that is akin to a quill's feathers losing their static electricity after touching a conductor. This electrical charge is a profound representation of masculine energy. It is a vital force that is meant to be grounded and exchanged, not dissipated into a void. The loss of this charge through artificial gratification, masturbation, or a relapse from the discipline of semen retention is a direct depletion of this vital essence without the necessary magnetic exchange. It leaves the system shocked and drained rather than balanced. Dr. Salter emphasizes that the Creator's sacred method for procreation and connection is through sexual cohabitation. This is the natural law. Any deviation from this law, he contends, leads inevitably to ill health, unhappiness, and a shortened lifespan. This is not framed as divine punishment in a religious sense, but as a biological consequence of violating the laws of nature. If you touch fire, you burn. If you waste the life force, you wither. One of the most profound observations Dr. Salter makes is regarding the psychological shift in those who practice self-abuse. He observes that the habit profoundly diminishes the natural desire for marriage and genuine connection. In severe cases, it leads to a revulsion toward the opposite sex. This stands in stark contrast to the uncorrupted man who experiences a natural magnetic attraction to women. The sexes are designed to be drawn together like powerful magnets, finding their greatest joy and spiritual union in sexual love. However, a woman with her intuitive nature cannot be truly satisfied by a man who has drained his battery. She cannot be electrified or polarized by a man who fails to retain his essence. A man who seeks fulfillment through masturbation or unnatural, casual interactions renders himself energetically inert. When natural yearnings are perverted, or when marriage and commitment are postponed in favor of solitary vice, societal ills proliferate. Rape, prostitution, illicit liaisons, and widespread masturbation are the symptoms of a society that has lost the blueprint. Just as a hurricane cannot be quelled mid-fury, sexual desire, once unnaturally provoked and unfulfilled by its intended purpose, cannot be easily silenced. It rages within, destructive and chaotic. Therefore, the practice of semen retention is not merely about abstinence. It is about the transmutation of this powerful electrical energy. From the standpoint of dark truth therapy, this is the essence of masculine alchemy. If this energy is not transmuted into creativity, drive, and purpose, it turns stagnant and poisonous. Failure to transmute leads to discomfort and unnatural urges that corrupt the mind, driving it toward frivolous pleasures to numb the agitation. Sexual intimacy is sacred for procreation and connection within commitment. Its misuse through masturbation, indiscriminate sex, infidelity, or excessive indulgence is a profound waste of masculine energy. These acts create deep wounds in the male psyche. They represent a rejection of the anima, the inner feminine, and a retreat into a narcissistic loop of self-gratification. This demands urgent shadow work to heal the disconnect between the man's biological drive and his spiritual purpose.
Dr. Salter moves from the theoretical to the clinical, stating emphatically that the symptoms of this vice are not exaggerations, but observable, tangible manifestations of devastation. He warned in 1874 that this was a burgeoning issue, and his warnings ring even truer today. The practice of masturbation has manifold, profoundly detrimental consequences that systematically deplete vitality, weakening the entire human system from the cellular level up. It impairs the function of the reproductive organs, causing them to wither or become hypersensitive. It disrupts digestion, robbing the body of nutrition. It slows circulation, leaving the extremities cold and the brain starved of oxygen. Crucially, it wreaks havoc on the nervous system, fostering diverse forms of mental depravity, a true corruption of the mind. The physical signs, while sometimes subtle, are unmistakable to the trained eye. In males, the habit is typically detectable via a specific set of physical markers: a lack of luster in the eyes, a dampness of the hands, a stoop in the shoulders, and a general air of furtiveness. In females, Salter notes, it is suspected from a shy, downcast countenance, an enervated appearance, relaxed tissues, and engorged veins. Paradoxically, this behavior manifests into extremes. Some victims develop adipose tissue, becoming bloated with a false appearance of health and a seductive demeanor that masks deep internal rot. Others suffer extreme debility and emaciation, a literal draining of the life force until they are skeletal figures. However, the most terrifying consequence lies in the realm of the mind. Dr. Salter warns that this deceptive road to pleasure is in truth the perilous road to insanity. Masturbation as a cause of insanity merits particular attention. He cites that nearly 1/7 of all cases in mental asylums during his time were undeniably traceable to this practice. This is a staggering statistic. The habit debilitates the mind, rendering individuals incapable of handling excitement or stress. The brain, starved of the phosphorus and vital nutrients found in the semen, becomes fragile. Conscious of the associated sin and shame, the sufferer's thoughts often turn to religion for solace, hoping for a miraculous cure without behavioral change. Under this intense emotional strain, reason gives way to derangement. Dr. Salter clarifies a critical point. It is not religious fervor that leads to insanity, but the underlying habit and its crushing psychological burden. The guilt acts as a pressure cooker. Any overwhelming excitement in this compromised state triggers total derangement. From the analytical view of dark truth therapy, this relentless pursuit of superficial pleasure at the cost of vitality reveals a severe lack of emotional discipline and a total disconnect from self-awareness. It is a tragic manifestation of the shadow self. The man becomes his own worst enemy, actively self-sabotaging his potential. He trades his birthright of power for a moment of sensation. This paves the way for a complete psychological breakdown instead of masculine healing. This destructive pattern underscores a masculinity crisis where men are prevented from doing the necessary inner work because they are too sedated by their own hand. The message is clear. Do not transgress against your bodies. Foster pure love, marry your beloved, and respect the sacred union. Only then will health, happiness, and a ripe old age be your reward.
The corrosive effects of masturbation do not cease when the individual closes their eyes. In fact, they invade the sanctuary of sleep, causing tormenting dreams and nocturnal seminal emissions. Dr. Salter observed that one such involuntary emission drains more vitality than several natural acts of intercourse. This is because the emission is often the result of a frantic, diseased nervous system firing blindly, rather than a harmonious discharge of energy. In severe cases of self-abuse, the brain develops abnormal passions, and the sexual organs become hypersensitive. The result is that lascivious dreams trigger emissions, a further drain on an already compromised system. While new practitioners of semen retention might experience these emissions occasionally as the body adjusts to the new energy levels, persistent occurrences signal a deeper, unresolved issue. Nocturnal emissions can also affect those who do not physically masturbate, but indulge in mental masturbation, allowing amorous thoughts to run wild during waking hours. As the scripture says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." If the mind is filled with lust during the day, the night will bring the thief of vitality. Initially, these emissions might be monthly. However, with continued self-abuse or mental laxity, frequency escalates to weekly or even nightly, exhausting vital reserves until the man wakes up more tired than when he went to bed. It is true, as Salter notes, that even truly chaste individuals may experience voluptuous dreams. In perfect health, these act as a harmless safety valve. For these infrequent occurrences, mental engagement, physical activity, and cold saltwater baths suffice. However, when emissions become frequent, they demand substantial treatment. Dreams are largely controllable by the discipline of the waking mind. As dark truth therapy emphasizes, our sleeping mind mirrors our waking thoughts. Pure, disciplined waking thoughts lead to pure sleep. A pure mind is a semen retention practitioner's best friend and is a testament to emotional discipline. This is where the battle is won or lost, in the control of the subconscious through the conscious rejection of lustful fantasies. If left unchecked, the condition worsens into a nightmare. For those engaged in self-abuse, frequent emissions are the beginning of the end. Failure to seek treatment leads to involuntary seminal emissions, uncontrollable discharges occurring even while awake. This is the stage of advanced affliction. A severely weakened nervous system culminates in profound insanity or a total loss of sexual feeling. Impotence and sterility follow. In this advanced stage, semen constantly dribbles away. The slightest stimulus, a touch of clothing, a glance at a woman, a mere thought, triggers involuntary loss. Authentic, pleasurable intercourse becomes impossible. The man is reduced to a leaking vessel. Yet, driven by an insatiable, corrupted craving, a hungry ghost in the psyche, he may still resort to masturbation in futile attempts to satisfy an itch that cannot be scratched. The mind weakens, memory impairs, and the body wastes away. The eyes wander vacantly, unable to hold a gaze. Social interaction becomes torture. Semen discharges during bowel movements or urination. The genitals inflame, making even the sight of a woman disagreeable. Reduced to this miserable state, the victim lives in a personal hell, haunted by the belief that all know his secret. Tormented by self-created demons, many contemplate suicide, an ultimate ego death born of despair. These dark truths demand confrontation, not evasion.
In this section, Dr. Salter connects the dots between the loss of seminal fluid and specific fatal diseases, challenging the medical establishment's compartmentalization of the human body. He insists that the relentless drain of vital energy is a direct precursor to grave physical ailments. He points specifically to tuberculosis, consumption. In the 19th century, this was a leading killer, often attributed to cold weather or overwork. Salter, however, identified it as a disease of low nervous vitality. The blood, impoverished by the constant manufacturing of semen to replace what is lost, loses its red principle, vitality, or oxygen-carrying capacity. Tubercle deposits form in the lungs because the system is too depressed to nourish the tissues. These formations are absent in healthy blood. Therefore, many consumptive victims are, in harsh reality, self-murderers. This is a brutal realization. The self-destructive nature of unchecked indulgence is a form of toxic love turned inward, eating the body alive. Cancer, too, finds its roots here. Dr. Salter documented well-authenticated cases, particularly cancer of the penis and testicles, caused by the constant friction, irritation, and congestion associated with the habit. Simultaneously, the systemic drain weakens the immune response, making the body susceptible to abnormal cell growths. But perhaps the most shocking correlation is with epilepsy. Dr. Salter confidently asserts that approximately 90% of epilepsy cases originate from masturbation. This is a staggering claim that redefines the disease not as a random genetic misfortune, but often as an acquired nervous injury. Epilepsy, essentially a short circuit in the brain and spinal column, stems from a morbid disruption in the nerve centers. Salter observed a specific lesion involving the spinal cord membrane, typically below the brain-spinal cord junction, which he believed was caused by the shock of unnatural sexual release. He recounts tragic cases of patients confined to mental institutions solely due to their inability to break the habit, despite potent remedies. The cure for epilepsy, in his view, was impossible without total abstinence from the root cause. Furthermore, the heart, the engine of life, suffers. Palpitations, sinking sensations, and frequent fainting are common as the nerve-controlling force weakens, leaving the heart defenseless against shocks. Digestion fails, dyspepsia, because the vagus nerve lacks the power to stimulate the stomach. Shortness of breath occurs as respiratory nerves falter. Constipation arises, which in turn excites further involuntary emissions because of the pressure of hardened feces on the prostate. A vicious cycle of decay. Conditions like irritable kidney, bladder, and prostate are direct results of local irritation from this miserable habit. The body is an interconnected web, and when the master switch, the sexual energy, is abused, every light in the house begins to flicker and die.
To summarize, Dr. Seaborn Freeman Salter's observations from 1874 reveal a chilling and undeniable truth. Persistent masturbation and sexual excesses are not harmless pastimes. They are the precursors to consumption, cancer, epilepsy, insanity, and a life of misery. This information is not offered to condemn the sufferer, but to save the man. We must understand the insidious signs of these practices to intervene before the damage is irreversible. We must educate our youth and ourselves about the dangers of wasting the life force, highlighting the vital importance of semen retention and a holistic approach to masculine energy. It is imperative to clarify a fundamental point. The purpose of sexual connection is not wrong. Sex is not the enemy. It is a sacred act designed for procreation, intimacy, and spiritual union within the safety of a committed relationship. It is the mechanism of life itself. What is profoundly detrimental, what dark truth therapy identifies as the critical dark truth, are the deviations from this authentic purpose. Masturbation, promiscuity, indiscriminate sex, infidelity, and any excessive superficial indulgence are not expressions of freedom. They are profound wastes of masculine energy. They are acts of spiritual vandalism. They manifest as a masculinity crisis, creating deep wounds in the male psyche that hinder growth, success, and power. It is time for men to confront what they have buried in the dark. It is time to stop chasing the dopamine hit of fleeting gratification and face the shadows of destructive habits. This journey of masculine healing demands that you engage in shadow work. You must dismantle the toxic love you have for your own sabotage. You must overcome the rejection trauma that drives you to seek comfort in your own hand rather than in the challenging arena of real relationships. Embrace emotional discipline. Cultivate self-awareness. Reclaim your masculine energy. Move beyond the ego death born of unexamined behaviors and step into your true potential. Begin your inner work today. Start unmasking the self and heal the wounded man within. If this resonates with you, and if you are ready to stop hiding and start building, join us. Like this content, share it with a brother who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Dark Truth Therapy. Here, we explore male psychology, love addiction, rejection, and the shadow self, guided by Jungian thought. Here, men heal by confronting the dark. Welcome to the truth.